You have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something. Your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever.
Stay hungry.
Hungry. Foolish. Stay hungry, stay foolish.
This is the eCommerce All-Stars podcast, brought to you with heart by Nadimo.com.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining today's podcast with your host Brandon Mosko, of course. And today I'm excited to have Micah Brown. He's the CEO and founder of Sentiment.io. For any of you who follow me often or even occasionally, I've been on a few other podcasts lately and talked about Sentiment and what they're doing. And so I thought, I've been asked questions that I don't know, and I thought what a better way to really bring people up to speed on what the world is doing in the AI space and social listing space than to have the founder of Sentiment.io, and that's Sentiment with a C, everybody, Micah on the line. So thanks for joining us today, Micah.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm glad you could join us. There's a lot you've been working on in the world of sentiment, as we'll call it. So I was hoping you could kind of give everybody a little bit of background on yourself and then kind of dive into what Sentiment is and what you've been working on there.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So my name is Michael Brown. I'm the CEO and founder of Sentiment. I've been working in data science and technology for about 10 years, since I was about 20. I'm just even a little bit younger than that, actually, before I was in banking for a little bit. And I founded Sentiment about 3 years ago. And essentially, the best way to think about Sentiment in terms of like a, buzzwordy way is brain-powered advertising and marketing. And what that means is neuroscience and sentiment analysis used for advertising and marketing. And again, another like analogy way to get it is the Google for feelings. So we have a search engine and it's just like Google, and you can look up sentiment analysis and feelings instead of web pages. And then another kind of buzzword, because the buzzwords work well, is neuro focus groups at scale. So it's like doing a focus group, but you scan people's brains instead. And you can do them at scale, which means you can do them across lots of different people. So I mean, that's it's taken a long time to get to get what we do down to this very concise type of thing. And the latest addition that we have to that is the emotional GPS. So we basically help you navigate your brand or your agency from emotional point A in the minds of the people in the world to emotional point B. So hopefully those Silicon Valley-esque analogies get across what we do relatively quickly. But as I said, my background is about 10 years in technology and data science and about 2 years in psychographics, neuroscience, and neurodata. And I bring all that to the world of advertising, essentially to remove bias. And by bias, we're talking about what we saw happen with Pepsi, with Kendall Jenner. And as far as Pepsi was concerned, that was a great ad. And then they released it. It was terrible. Amazon and H&M and all these situations where in the heads of advertising executives, when they do a normal focus group, it's great. It's just, whatever. And then they put it out and it's like, oh man, we didn't think about all these other people. So if they had our tool available to them in those points, they wouldn't make those mistakes. So yeah.
Great. Yeah, and it's quite the advanced technology, I call it. And it's almost to the point where it's so advanced, it's very difficult for even a technology buff like myself to really not only grasp what it can do, but really, it can do so much more than even what my little brain could even comprehend. And I got in there and I played with it a little bit, but it was only barely scratching the surface in what I found out it could do. And I just think there's a lot of opportunity for the e-commerce space specifically to be utilizing a tool like this. And I think one of the examples that I had given when I was on the show is, as we were talking about, if sales are down and whatnot, and all it did was somebody just quickly looks in Sentiment and go, well, there's a whole bunch of, I don't know the right word. I don't want to use hate right now, but there's not a very good feeling about our brand right now. Where is that and why is that? And it can take you can find that out in such a very, very quick time frame. What you're talking about is even prior to that stage, and knowing, before you're launching the advertising, you're knowing how people are going to be feeling about it, because you've done that neuroscience on the actual in the preliminary stages, as opposed to watching your commercial go out and then everybody getting upset about it, eh?
Exactly. So, the best way to think about the neuroscience bit is kind of simple. It's like having a conversation, right? So, in this conversation, I'm not going to be talking about like what I can see right now. So, like, for instance, I'm sitting in a co-working space and I can see chairs. I'm not going to go off on chairs because I have the context of the stimuli you just gave me, which I'm responding to, right? So, as human beings, we do that very easily. And actually, in neuroscience, we call that the mirror neuron complex, right? So, it's like you have a particular set of dendrites and dendrites in your brain which fire off when I say certain words, and then when I hear a response to that, my kind of nervous system fires off too, and then we're in the same place. But that only usually happens when humans are interacting with one another. As soon as you take it to the world of advertising, it's one person imposing their will on the world.
Right.
So that's where you get this weird place where, let's say it's let's say the guy is a Trump supporter. It's like, oh, this certain content is going to be great. People are going to love this. Make America great again. It's like, well, no one did. So that's essentially what we do. We help avoid those kind of episodes, and the way we do that is a couple of different things. I like to think about it as physical stimuli and digital stimuli and where, right? So that's the stuff you can't control. It's okay. I'm in the world. I'm in a co-working space right now, and I'm in this co-working space, and maybe I get certain digital ads, and there are other people around me, and there's verbal and visual stimuli. Those are things that as a brand or an agency or some influencing party, you can't really control, right? Those are things that are native to the physical world. But if you understand them, you at least understand where a person or sets of persons is placed in the physical world, and that affects what kind of advertising you want to show them, right? And the next bit is how you think about mapping that. So we create topographical maps of those environments, and then from that, we're able to inversely understand what would affect or not affect the people in those environments. And so all of a sudden, by starting with what's happening in the place and the thing, you narrow down what you even want to send or broadcast to the people, or digital experiences in those places. And then from there, you move on to kind of like, okay, cool. Now I've figured out this market space, if you will, of Micah at the co-working space. What do I want to show him to get him to buy my products? And here's where you figure out the wants and needs and almost action buttons of Micah as a human being. And then once you understand all that, now you're in a place where it's like, wow, okay, even if Micah goes outside or he goes to the gym or wherever he goes, I've understood Micah as a person. And now I can start to really think about inspiration, which is getting to my stuff, right? Like I want to show Micah a certain thing, but I've got to show it to him at the gym because he works out at 6 p.m. when he's in a good mood, right? If I show it to him then, I've got 80% probability of conversion. It's going to go to my page, it's going to click on things, he might buy something. And so that's engagement. And then impact is the last bit where you get to see financial impact of the money that you make from taking all these prior measures.
Very cool. Yeah, you just take everything to an just an exponentially further level. And how are you, like, I know there's a lot of different technologies used, and I know you did do brain scans, if I'm correct on that.
Yep, we did 100 people. Yep, 100 people.
How many 100? 300?
100. At MIT.
Oh. And was that how you figured out kind of like which, like the types of words that light up certain areas of the brain and that sort of thing?
Yeah, we call that a hierarchical language tree. So
Right.
that is the thing all the way at the bottom of all of the insights that we get. It's like literally a person deconstructed into language. And so, for instance, you're like somebody who sounds relatively educated, but maybe is a little bit of an introvert, right? So like the language terms I would use with you would be things like interesting, intellectual, deep, engaging words, but not overt words. Like I'm an extrovert, so someone's going to use words like active and cool and whatever, right? So it's a tree which is native to the person, and also then even from an SEO perspective gives you access to what they'll respond to.
Yeah, and if you were just a typical person trying to do anything at the level you're doing it, it's almost undoable. And you've used a lot of machine learning technologies as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So on the machine learning side, it's interesting because I did a little bit of this via Common MVC and I experimented it. And then I just had a very simple theory that a lot of the automation that was happening was at the beck and call of people. All right. So very sophisticated data scientists, neuroscientists, whoever are out there, advertising executives, marketing executives, running bits of code in very controlled environments and nothing at macro level, right? So I thought, 3 divisible components. If I put together these 3 divisible components, I'd be able to basically understand any environment. And those are the physical world, which we got from a telecom provider who's a partner of ours, the emotional world, which we get from social media destinations, and the neurological world, which we get from people's brain scans. And when you combine all those things, you can understand any set of events in any environment really, really well, almost to the point where advertising to the specific person at the time of day when they're experiencing something.
Wow. No, that's just, it's mind blowing. Really, when you think about the 3 very, like the 3 very specific pieces that you're using to tie it back to really learn about individuals and demographic spaces and all of those types of things. I mean, it would be exponentially useful. I mean, I couldn't see how it couldn't be of use to just about anybody. Of course, there's obviously you guys target specific segments of the world with you, just like everybody else does. But I mean, I get excited about the technology itself because just because I'm a tech geek. But in the same vein, I can see so many different ways that it could be used to benefit not just to benefit commerce or e-commerce or those types of things, but to benefit so many different aspects of things, and it could just be used in so many different ways that it gets me excited when I hear about that. And the fact that you actually took the time to do those brain scans and these types of pieces, so that it's not just a one-off type of solution that looks at the social and makes a guesstimate. It's really going in depth and actually pulling valid information, like you said too, from your telecom partner. That side of things as well. So that's very, very interesting. I mean, you used yourself as an example, but do you have any? I don't know if you can use company names, but do you have any examples or an example of how somebody might be using it today?
Yeah, I mean, we have, interestingly, 2 sets of people who are kind of customers, right? 2 agencies and brands. I found for the most part, agencies are interested in some of the more sophisticated aspects of the tool, specifically the programmatic bit. Programmatic just being the thing that we can plug in to make decisions on its own in terms of which devices display certain pieces of information like video, location, and social media. Agencies are interested in that bit. And the way that a lot of agencies are interested in that is mostly through the use of what we call segmenting. So it'll be, there are 8 million people in New York City, say 250,000 have a certain level of income, they live in, say, the Upper West Side, they subscribe to certain psychographic tendencies, they watch certain things on video, on YouTube, and all this information is available via different sources that we have. And then an agency will look at that and say, oh, wow, that's perfect for Fendi. Fendi looks for exactly those people, and they're called personas. And so we will basically help them build persona retargeting strategies where they take this information and then we layer emotion on top of it, and they figure out the best way to affect those people at the right time, the right place, and when they're feeling the right way. Agencies do that way. I find brands are more interested in optimizing the content. So at the beginning of the content creation process, like, right, is this content right for my tone of voice? And then that's more the emotional GPS type of thing, right? So is this content right for where I am emotionally for my audience right now? Yes, it is great. Is your audience, if you're Macy's, soccer moms? Yes, great, cool. They're not buying very much. Oh, really? Yeah. I actually want the high-end Upper West Side crowd. Oh, really? Yeah, well, you're going to need to change your colors. You're going to need to change some of your creative. You're going to need to use different videos. You're going to need to, so on and so forth, navigating all these emotional positions until you get to your target audience. And that's more the way brands are using it. So, yeah.
That's very interesting. So it's basically looking at the content and saying, oh yeah, no, you don't want to put that content out there because it's actually targeting the wrong demographic, and this is what you need to do to make it more attractive or appealing to this demographic, which is who you should be targeting.
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool. Awesome. I'm just thinking, like I said, I could go on and on forever about all the different ways that it could be used. But I mean, I like to keep it short and sweet as well. So, what do you have any final thoughts here in regards to ways that or I don't know, ways that you want people to be using it, or some random weird wacky ideas that people have had, or any final thoughts on that, I guess.
I mean, like, it's more philosophical because, instead of starting at the point of our own opinions when we put something out into the universe, ideally, I'd like a world where, even our search engine becomes an open source product, and the emotional quotient that people who are good at business and advertisers who do and use that quality is available to any person, so they can understand the impact of what they're saying on the world. Because ultimately, that's what the bias is, right? That's where the bias comes from. When you hatch an opinion or a set of opinions in a little cave, and then, especially if you're someone influential, you put those opinions out into the world and they hurt a lot of people, right? Words are very powerful. So for me, the main mission is, whether it's the decision makers at a media strategy planning and buying level in corporate America, or just the individual in corporate America, emotional understanding of the impact of words is very important, and that's what sentiment's about.
Very interesting. I was thinking about it too once. I was thinking about, we're working on this tool right now, a little bit at a time, but basically a way for you to upload your brain, right? And so you could eventually be able to ask this system, ask it questions and basically be answering it, or the computer would answer based on information you've given it, right? And then at the very end, I thought, oh yeah, and if you used sentiment, you could then ask it, well, and how do you feel about that? And it would be able to answer based on, information that you fed it about its own personality or something along those lines, and the words and that sort of thing that it's used. And says, oh, I'm in love with that idea, or that kind of thing. And I mean, that's getting a little bit wacky and a little bit out there, but it was just one of those random thoughts I had that, it's in its own way. It's also creating the ability to really think for itself in some ways too, if utilized with other integrations and those types of things. But anyway, like, we were going philosophical, so I figured I'd go a little bit.
No. The field of whole brain emulation, or WBE as it's known, including long-term memory and self-recognition, is an interesting one. I covered it in some of the studies that I've done. And I mean, it ranges from bionics to thinking about how biomimicry is just the art of mimicking nature with machines, and biomedical engineering all intersect. And then, brain-computer interfaces, which is part of one of the partner companies that we work with called Neuroscience missions as well, is an interesting field. And I think all these things just come together to essentially do what's called second generation modality, right? Or the singularity, as it's called. People think the singularity is this futuristic, like, super database, which is going to take over the world, Skynet. Ooh, ah! Yeah. The singularity is a collection of our behavioral data making its way into a mission critical database one day, and then decisions being made either without our knowledge or independently by machines. And that's something as simple as Tinder or traffic lights or recidivism risk. Recidivism risk is this calculation of when prisoners are likely to go back to jail, right? And that's done using a computer algorithm right now. And that computer algorithm is highly biased. It's built based on a form that prisoners do when they're taken into custody. And this form is literally like the most discriminatory of forms you can imagine. Where were you born? How much did your parents make? what's your ethnicity, and then that's fed into a computer, and then regardless of how an inmate spends the period of their sentence, when they're facing the judge, who has total levity to make a decision, has a piece of paper on his desk that says this person's 80% likely to go back to jail, because it's only based on that intake form and not who they are as a person. That's an example of the singularity. And that's where WBE could be really useful, because if you had a brain emulation making decisions based on human data instead of just purely machine recognition in a situation like that, well, maybe it would make different decisions and recommend lesser percentages, because it would understand the whole of who a person is. So that's almost at the center of the mission of what we're doing as well, like introducing that level of humanity to machines in artificial intelligence environments, in advertising environments, stops a H&M, or it stops a Pepsi, or it stops a million different other examples that we have. And that's the overriding mission of what I'm doing. So it's not chat. Yeah, that was all totally on point. So, yeah.
Very neat. No, that's why I'm glad I opened it up with that little bit of that philosophical prelude, because I mean that's the kind of things I like to talk about as well, is that, the point of singularity and understanding the human mind and what, and the individuals and all that sort of thing. And it's pretty cool, I mean, what you're doing there. And that's why I've kind of fallen in love with sentiment and what you guys are doing. And really, I mean, like I said, I can only scratch the surface on understanding it, but every time I talk to you guys, I learn a lot more. And so do you have any words of wisdom for anyone listening out there? And then secondly, how can people get a hold of you or find out more about sentiment?
Yeah. Words of wisdom, I guess, in the immortal words of Alexander Hamilton. History has its eyes on you. Actually, that was, I think that was Jefferson. But in any case, every action that we take today is being recorded in a way that has not happened in history before. And more importantly, we have these massive platforms, which are direct lines to human thought, which didn't exist before either. Being responsible on these platforms is not hard. Just think about what you do, who it's affecting, why, how, particularly in this asinine political environment. Like, every single data point is both a point to understand you for the machines that run society and a point for other human beings to take positive or negative inspiration from. So just be cognizant of everything that you post. And then the best way to get a hold of me, on Twitter, I'm Micah AP Brown. On LinkedIn, I'm Micah Ainsley Brown. The Sentiment website is sentiment.io with a C. And you can go there and check everything that we've got going on out. You can check out the news. We're in the news. If you just Google us and go to the news tab, there's a few of the things that we did. I want to say thank you to Sprint, our corporate partner, Accelerator, that we went through last year, and Ali, the co-working space that we work out of, and Brandon, you, for having me on this podcast.
Awesome. Well, no, thanks again, man. I think it was a very entertaining and educational experience for anyone listening, and I quite enjoyed having you on the show, so thank you.
Awesome stuff, man. Good stuff.
You have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something. Your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever.
Stay hungry.
Hungry. Foolish. Stay hungry. Stay foolish.
This is the eCommerce All-Stars podcast, brought to you with heart by Nadimo.com.